good afternoon. Welcome to our live podcast of I'm just going to call this one, this is not a play on Mark's name, the Fanboy podcast. And our questions, you have lots of fans out there, Blythe, and they all have questions for you.
Well, let's just ask them all. No, let's not ask them all now. Well, that's nice. Hello, everyone. Thank you for writing in. And I guess I'm both speechless and a little embarrassed.
Next time at Heathrow, you may get mobbed by like the Daily Mail, the
absolutely.
paparazzi,
Yes,
autographs.
if every other celebrity opportunity in the world dies between now and then, that might come to pass.
You could sell like some sort of liquor in some far-flung country somewhere.
Oh, that's a good one. I could do Nespresso or something like that.
Yes, exactly.
Those who know Nespresso.
So I just noticed looking at the box office returns that Avengers Infinity War is the top grossing movie, and thinking about that with the Black Panther movie, how we can't get enough. We have an insatiable appetite for superhero movies.
We do indeed.
It's almost like we want to move away from what we see every day on the news to this alternative reality.
Yes, we're basically. No, it is kind of interesting. So, not giving any spoilers away because I haven't seen the film yet. But you can imagine the typical thing: big sort of evil person comes down and does bad stuff. Righteous people with wonderful powers who never seem to get it on the wrong side of stuff sort things out. And the world ends up kind of being a better place, or at least on a cliffhanger on its way to being a better place. Whereas we actually have to deal with the real world.
Yes, and with no sequels.
With no sequels,
just one
long
running
episode.
Yes.
Exactly.
So maybe picking up on that point about one long running episode, North Korea. I feel like that's dominated the news for the last since our last podcast. Of course, South Korea's president and North Korea's president, if that's I think he has a more official title, met and hugged at the DMZ.
There was much embracement.
Yes, this is a big deal. This is in preparation for the meeting. We don't know where yet with between Trump and Kim Jong-un. I think it was interesting to see the progress of this. There didn't seem to be a lot of substance that came out of the meeting. A lot of pomp and circumstance, but they're going to talk about maybe denuclearization.
Yeah, the scuttlebutt seems to be, if you guys promise to never invade us, which we weren't going to anyway, then we'll promise to get rid of all of our nukes. But I have a slightly different twist on this one. So just think about it this way. A friend of mine wrote this one down on the weekend, and I thought it was fascinating. Not the conclusion, just the observation. There's been 10 American presidents since North Korea became North Korea. There's been 11 South Korean presidents. There's been 3 members of the Kim family. They've always behaved badly, right? They've always basically done really horrible things. Right? And suddenly, out of nowhere, and we could say it's because of sanctions, and hopefully that's the story, this guy changes and he's all warm and fuzzy. It's an embrace. He's going to meet with Trump. What if he kidnaps Trump? Right?
Is that a real scenario?
Imagine if that one happens. Imagine that basically it's like this mad James Bond escapade, and then he kidnaps Trump and holds him for ransom.
There is the history of North Koreans capturing Japanese and taking them back.
Lots of people, absolutely.
Kidnapping.
Wow.
That is true. I guess I was also, from seeing this and from my perspective as an American politics person from looking at it abroad, I also was kind of struck with. China has cut off their support of North Korea, correct? So, in some ways, I also see North Korea being on the ropes and having to reach out to whoever they can. That includes South Korea and the U.S. in order to just to stay alive and keep their population
to run
alive.
the serious one on us, forget the sort of the James Bond thing for a minute. So when the defector came over, who was shot on the border about 6 or 8 months ago, and this is frontline troops, the guy was starving to death, he had tapeworms, all this sort of stuff. So the country's in terrible shape economically, and maybe they've actually just got to the point where it's like, okay, noise and bluster and threatening to nuke people isn't really going to solve any of these problems long term. Maybe we can survive and do a little bit better. So let's hope that's the way that this plays out.
Your point about the family, it also shows in some regard that diplomacy doesn't mean very much. You can say and do, and you can say lots of crazy stuff, and the world is still going to try to placate you or at least talk with you in some way or another. So I feel like in a lot of ways, Kim Jong-un fits the mold of the type of leaders that we're seeing elected around the world right now too, in terms of the crazy stuff tactics.
Well, yeah, but I mean, they also do crazy stuff tactics and murder hundreds of thousands
True.
of people crazy
That's
tactics.
true.
So
Yes.
it's more than words.
Right. And sick rabid dogs on family members.
Yeah,
Come
my
on,
favorite
that's
one
true.
was apparently using an anti-aircraft gun to execute your uncle.
Oh my God. Jeez.
I mean, that's just really going for it.
That's some serious.
Serious-
That's a
serious
Thanksgiving dinner
artillery.
gone awry.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I don't know if you saw him because he was everywhere, and that's Jim Comey. I mean, he
Oh,
was
yes.
everywhere. On.
I was in Scotland. He wasn't
Did you
there.
see him there?
No, he was not there.
But he must have been on the BBC.
He was on the BBC, absolutely.
At some point. I mean, I have read just excerpts of the book, but so I thought it was okay written. I think he maybe could have picked a different ghostwriter, but maybe that's neither here nor there. But really, just the point of a former FBI director writing a book about a sitting president. I mean, that was sort of stunning to me, and to see to hear his perspective on sitting inside those rooms when the president asks you for your allegiance.
But again, it goes back to something that we've spoken about before, which is kind of the sheer oddity of Trump in the White House. So, we said before, if any other sitting president had accusations by multiple porn stars, right, they would already be impeached and out of office. And, Comey's criticisms in the same light are a kind of, who cares?
Yeah.
Right,
Yeah.
So remember the book that we weren't talking about, that we were talking about in January?
Yes.
All the sort of this, what was it
Fire
even
and
called?
Fury-
The Fire and Fury, right?
yes.
So that one's like furiously fired itself out to nothing.
Yes.
And now we've got this round of outrage. So there's a bit, I always like the line that some Republican senators said during the Iraq War when all the Abu Ghraib photographs came out, which was, I'm outraged, but I'm outraged about the outrage.
Yes.
Right? And I
yes.
think at the point, everyone's kind of outraged to the outrage, to the point that we're just giving up on outrage.
Well, and I think I've made this point now 150 times, but if you look at the bestseller list, it's all, I mean, if any of us could just write a book in the next day about some anti-Trump rant, it would seem, it would shoot to the
exactly.
top.
So you're definitely playing to the base.
Yes. So I get over the weekend, there's a number of asylum seekers who are now at the border between Mexico and the U.S. And there's a lot of confusion about the processing of their paperwork and sort of where they're going to go. I guess the line from the border officials was that there was no room in the inn and that they were at capacity. This just is such a chaotic mess. And it's hard to see what exactly is going to be the outcome other than to send people back.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, you think about El Salvador and, classic sort of failed state story. I mean, ultimately you have rapacious criminal gangs preying off the middle classes.
Yeah.
People sending their kids solo to try and get them into third-party countries just to get them out of the way. Breaking up of families, sending back remittances, the remittances getting stolen, people getting kidnapped. It's horrid. So, of course, people want to get out of there. But, the bigger case, Venezuela.
Yes.
Right, so we've got Venezuela, people streaming through the border into Brazil to this one city that's in that area, which is totally overstrapped for trying to handle this. So we have this phenomena of these countries which, it really should be doing better than they are, all things considered, which have become kind of governance nightmares. And people want out. And it's quite reasonable for people to want out, but if people in other countries aren't really, yes, let's receive everyone, then that politics is going to happen.
So actually, on this point, Blythe, there's a question from one of our listeners, Isaac Aberhart, and boiling down is a really great question. But I'm just boiling this down. Sort of, what does it look like for Brazil in the medium future? I mean, Venezuela. Is there any hope? Is there any bright spot?
Anyone whose main sort of economic strategy is we're still 100% dependent on oil. We haven't done investment in plant and equipment for years. Nobody trusts us, and I'm going to launch a cryptocurrency. I'll say that again. I'm going to launch a cryptocurrency. That's all the information you need. This is not looking good.
I'm pausing thinking about this. Very not looking good. This is a rough transition, guys, so forgive me. The Democratic Party.
Yes, that's okay. Venezuela cryptocurrency is Democratic Party.
The next thought is the Democratic Party. So they're suing the Trump administration, WikiLeaks, and Russia over the 2016 election. I mean, could this be the worst lawsuit and the most pointless lawsuit in the history of lawsuits?
Well, if you want to basically make Trump's point for him, it's an excellent way of doing it because it's not clear who you're actually suing. Number one, WikiLeaks has no domestic jurisdiction in the United States. I'm not sure you could probably sue them. Can you sue a sovereign state? That's a bit tricky. If you try and sue Russia, I just don't see them going, yeah, okay, you got us, we're
Right.
fine, right? So,
Throw
even
ourselves in jail.
strategically, this just, Trump spends his time saying, look, this whole thing is a giant conspiracy brought on by Democrats who just can't deal with the fact that they
Yes.
lost the election.
Yeah.
And now the Democrats are suing for the result.
Yeah.
Now, they say, it's an assault on our democracy, and we know there's enough evidence to say that Russia was involved, et cetera, et cetera. But, as I like to remind people, we have a thing called the National Endowment for Democracy that's been interfering in elections all over the world for the past 30
Please.
years.
Yes.
So,
Yes.
shame on us.
Well, and that continues to do this.
And continues to do this. So long as we're
Yes.
doing it as democracy promotion,
Yes.
the minute anybody else does it, it's interference.
Yeah, I just think that, I mean, especially I think the point that you made were the literature drops over Eastern Europe. I mean, this is just the height of hypocrisy when we stand or whatever on our high horse and preach about this.
Yeah.
And yet,
But even if you're on the side of the Democrats on this one and want to displace Trump and derail his agenda, essentially going out and trying to sue everyone, it just strategically signals that really you're just whining about the result,
you can't move forward.
and you can't move forward.
Yeah.
But speaking of moving forward,
Yes,
they have
please.
been moving forward, haven't they?
Yes, they have.
What have they been doing, Carrie?
Th-
Or
thank
what
you
have they
for
been
that
suggesting?
setup.
That was
So-
an easier segue. Did you notice that one? I just I
very
went
smooth.
round. It was
It
very good in that
it's very
segue.
smooth.
Yes.
So we had a question from a listener, Charles Drayton, about the jobs guarantee bill. So there's a Cory Booker version. This is in the Senate, and a Bernie Sanders version. And this question is really about: is this a model, or is it not ready for prime time? And I think I really like this question because, well, first of all, it puts a lot of responsibility on the shoulders of the city and the state. But just from a political point of view, and I think this was part of the question: is it not ready for prime time? I mean, you have two people that are probably going to run for president, and also part of this bill is a guaranteed $15 minimum wage. This is the Democratic base. Big D Democratic base will love this sort of thing, but it seemed to me to be political. I mean, part of the political rhetoric, part of the political gamesmanship that is going on in terms of who's going to run for president and really capture the progressive base.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I mean, ultimately, can the United States afford a $15 wage? Yeah, of course it can. Will there be displacement in low-wage sectors? Yes, of course there will be. There'll be automation, etc. So, there'll be gains as well as losses. But there's nothing too controversial in doing that. It's the notion of a jobs guarantee in that sense. And for me, the weird thing about this is most of the time, when you're not in moments of, right, which is most of the time, the United States runs pretty tight labor markets. So, in a sense, is it a solution looking for a problem to solve? Because
Yeah,
if you're
that's
really
interesting point.
concerned with just the level of wages, then do something about the level of wages.
Yeah.
And you can work on the minimum wage side, or you could, God forbid, actually tax corporations rather than handing them even more money when they've never made more money than they're making now. But that might be a little bit too radical. So what we have to do
Yeah.
is a $15 jobs guarantee.
But which no Republican will sign on.
No,
to
they'll never
either.
sign on to.
So I mean, symbolically, I guess it does. It does something.
There is an interesting one, though. Senator Warren and a couple of other people actually put forward legislation for what the Europeans call co-determination, which in other words is putting workers in the companies involved on the board of directors so that their voices are heard. Now, you can take that to the point that they're voting, they're non-voting, it's advisory, whatever, but they want them in there. And I actually think this is potentially much more interesting because even corporate leaders will tell you now they're caught in this terrible spiral whereby if they don't hit quarterly targets, which are constantly going up and up, then what happens is they get voted out from the shareholders, they lose their jobs, et cetera, et cetera. So what do you have to do? You have to constantly boost the share price. How do you do this? You're doing constant share buybacks. So you're constantly buying back your shares, you're boosting it up, everybody wins, but what's happening to investment? You're just doing financial engineering. You're not investing in skills, you're not investing in jobs, plant, equipment, things that actually matter. Now, the people on the boards don't like this. So maybe getting sort of, the representatives of normal people
Yes.
into the board as well to change that conversation
Yeah.
might actually be more useful than a guaranteed job thing.
That's interesting. There are all these op-eds that...
Have you noticed that Megan looks like she's horrified at something we're saying? It's amazing. Megan's sitting, just in case you can see this, Megan's sitting there, and she had this look of abject terror, like someone was emailing, they will all die, they will all die. And I was like, what's going on anyway?
Maybe she doesn't like the universal, wage guarantee.
I know, I just started talking about that, and she just looked like it, said something terribly offensive.
There's this op-ed around Hillary Clinton and that her campaign people. So again, not letting go of 2016, her campaign people said the middle class doesn't like to be called the middle class anymore. So they struggled to find the right word, and everyday Americans they settled on. And so the tagline that was kind of used tongue in cheek around the campaign was everybody's. And so I was just thinking about when you brought up let's put the everybody's on a board. But I mean, there's real substance there in terms of maybe there wouldn't be a replication of the same issues if we actually have new perspectives.
There's a brilliant book by a sociologist called Stephanie Mudge. I don't think I've spoken about this before. Right? It's coming out with Harvard, or it's just about to come out. And she looks at the secular decline of centre-left parties in the United States, United Kingdom, France, Sweden, and one other country, I forget what it is. And her basic story is this. Around the 1990s, parties stopped growing constituents. Right? They no longer cared about, having a ward, having a social club, providing any kind of benefits or whatever, people getting together to talk politics. Instead, they were like mushrooms. They were to be fed bullshit and kept in the dark and then harvested at election time. So you hired...
Yeah.
You hired the consultants because they told you how to do stuff.
Yeah.
And you hired what she calls finance-friendly economists because they told you about the market and what the market likes.
Right.
And then you have your strategists and your consultants and your finance-friendly economists. And then you end up with this world in which parties are trying to identify these things, what do we call them? They're everybody's. How do we get to the everybody's? Yes. As opposed to actually remembering what politics is, which is going out and engaging with people about their needs and desires.
Yeah.
And thinking about how collectively as a project we can get there.
Yes.
And that's what's happened from Sweden to the United States. The left fell for this nonsense.
Yes.
And it's now on its last legs. The German SPD has been around for 100 years. It's just signed this new coalition agreement, right? They've got a new finance minister who makes Schäuble, the guy who was Merkel's finance minister, look like me with a Visa card after a bottle of tequila, right? And it's just this, they're self-immolating.
Wait, is that good or bad?
It would be fun in short term, painful in long term. But no, I mean, he's just he's more fiscally conservative than the fiscal conservatives, right? So if the whole point of the left is to basically do the right's work for them over and over again, what's the point?
Yeah.
And that's just emblematic of the everybody's. Good God.
I know, and that that we're so politically, that at least in the U.S. and perhaps around the world too, that people are so politically that the candidates are so insulated that they have to be told this. And they can't just go talk to people.
Yeah, just go talk to people
and say stuff that might make sense to somebody.
I mean, and the contrast with Trump is remarkable, right? I mean, what did he do? He walked out in front of people and said the first thing that came into his head.
Yes.
And if it resonated, he went for it.
Yeah.
That's called politics.
Yes. Yeah. Well, and that's called authentic too.
Yeah.
And that people like this. Italian 10-year bonds seem to be doing fine. Triple question mark.
Is that one of the questions?
That's one of the questions from one of our listeners.
Yes, because people like to sleepwalk before they fall off a cliff. I mean, seriously, I mean, I could check it right now, but it's probably true that the Italian 10-year is below the United States 10-year. So let's think about what that actually means. You honestly think that the United States is a bigger credit risk than Italy? If that's the case, please send me your email because I have an account in Nigeria and I'd like to transfer $40 million to you. Megan laughed at that one. That was good. She stopped looking terrified.
We have a question from Isaiah Gooley, and his question was around Chinese investment in infrastructure and general investment in Africa. I was, as I was thinking about your question, Isaiah, I thought, so in 2000, China invested $210 million US in sub-Saharan Africa. In 2011, it was $3.17 billion. So, I mean, this is a huge amount of money. I think the Chinese Infrastructure Bank has a budget of $11 trillion billion or something like that. That very precise number. And the question was around, is this a net positive? I mean, from my perspective, this is about a place to send their labor, around extraction of natural resources, places to sell their goods. I mean, is there anywhere left?
And the bonus is you get roads, you get hospitals, you get schools. and we don't
Right.
try and change your form of government.
Right.
So from on that point of view, then yeah, it's good. There's always two things about these free gifts. So number one, they're not free; they're loans, right? You got to pay them back at some point, presumably. And the second thing is the quality of the infrastructure. So if you're coming
That's a
there
great
and
point.
building really good stuff, then that's net positive
Yep.
long-term investment. If you're actually just throwing up a bunch of nonsense and you don't have the capacity to maintain it,
Yeah.
and it's all cracking up and falling apart within a couple of years, then in a sense, what's the point? And
Right.
what China seemed to be doing is the whole One Belt, One Road initiative, of which this is one part really. It's a side project of it. Is China? We won't let China buy the stuff that they want to with all the dollars they've got, because we have a thing called the National Investment. What Security and Foreign Investment Act of 2007 or something like that. But anyway, we won't let them buy guns, pharma, or anything that matters. So basically, they're going to go out and make their own.
Yeah.
And Africa's part of that project.
Yeah, that's a great point about the quality of stuff. So you get roads and bridges, but if they fall apart within 10 years,
Yeah,
what are you
exactly. What's the
really
point? So there's a
gonna be
story
going
of the
for? Yeah.
Chinese built a big hotel complex in Kenya, in Nairobi, and it's already falling about everyone's ears, and therefore they're no one thinks they're so wonderful anymore now that
Right.
it's falling down. When it's
Yeah.
going up, it's great. When it's coming
Right.
down, not so
Right.
good.
10 seconds later, right. Princess Kate had a baby boy.
Yes, she did.
Did you send well wishes? And, in hopes of
Well,
greasing the wheels for my
what I
wedding
thought was
invitation?
amazing about it was that apparently she's this 1% of women who get this like really hard, constant,
Yeah.
prenatal sickness.
Yes.
And just imagine being nauseous for 9 months.
Yes.
Now,
That
ask
sounds
yourself, this has
awful.
happened in all of her pregnancies, right?
Yeah.
So she's nauseous for 9 months, and she's done this 3 times.
Yeah.
She's way tougher than me. I would have
that's a great
quit at
point.
1. I would have
That's a
been on
great
the
point.
adoption train after that one,
I wonder if
definitely.
the Queen made her, though.
Well, that's it.
you know,
Could be.
we-
Could be. You never know.
we
But
don't know. Yeah.
anyway, yes, brilliant. What Britain really needs now is, another royal personage in the 21st century, because of course, royalism is the solution to so many of the problems
Well,
we're
but
facing.
maybe that's the next click for us. Like after all the authoritarians, then they just could be
Oh, I
royal
love it.
families.
That's great.
Yeah.
No, we could just go the full thing. I mean, we've got sort of, is it Aristotle or Plato's cycle of political regimes? I think it's
Yes,
Aristotle.
right.
So we're at democracy, which undermines itself, which becomes oligarchy.
Yeah.
Hopefully we can skip through totalitarianism and just go
Yeah.
straight to monarchy.
I mean, Jeff Bezos could be our king. I mean, he owns all of us as it is.
Exactly.
So
He could buy
why
all
not?
of us. We
Yes.
could voluntarily become serfs.
And then deliver ourselves
Yes.
to our trunk.
which we could then turn into a religion with
Yes.
deliver thyself unto Amazon.
Yes, exactly. Did you see that Amazon is now delivering to your trunk of your car for those living in like dense cities like New York, and you can't have packages delivered to your office or at your house because it might get stolen? They'll deliver it to your car.
How do they do that?
I mean, I guess it's like they find your PIN on the map and all that.
How do they get in the trunk?
That was a question I didn't have because I'm at work and I have a car in New York. Okay, but yeah, who's letting them into the trunk?
Yeah, and who the
Yes.
hell drives to work in New York?
That's another. These
Yeah,
are all questions
see,
that
no,
I had.
I'm not
Yeah,
buying it. I
okay.
think this is another part of his master plan to take over the world.
And the last, just my end stuff that I wanted to get, that I had to say, was that there is it's a sad day because South Korea did say in their talks with North Korea that they would silence the K-pop that they had blasting at the DMZ to really annoy the North Koreans. So maybe
Are they going to change it for something else?
No, they just said no music, no, more
music.
music.
See, it'd be great if they varied
For
the
K-pop.
menu, right? They just
Yeah.
stop K-pop. Suddenly, what you get is a little bit of Taylor Swift,
Maybe yes,
right?
yeah,
And then
yeah.
maybe one of our exes, so we could
Yeah.
get Calvin Harris in there.
Yes,
That'd be
yes.
good.
Because
And
some country
let's just imagine
western-
actually playing Calvin Harris. Getting ready for the weekend, over and over and over and over again in North Korea. I think that would be kind of brilliant on some level. That'd be awesome.
Did
Shout
you,
out for Calvin Harris.
yeah. Did you have any end stuff?
No,
No.
I'm ended.
Thank you all for watching and listening. We will be back.
We hope.
Yes.
Famous last words. Bye.